the main ladies first, what we're going to start out with is, again, I'm going to do a little bit of self-introducing here. And I've asked the panelists to tell us what they think is the thing about our political system that is most dysfunctional, and then give us a bit of an idea of how they fix it. And then I think we'll just start going from there and maybe draw some ideas that you can lead them. So, ladies first, Terry.
Hi, I'm Terry Kibbe. I'm CEO of Free the People. We focus on educating millennials on the ideas of liberty. And when I said that I was a connector, what I meant by that is I help to connect people with ideas. I help connect people, I help connect other people with other people that they need to meet. I've been fortunate, I've been working in this movement for a long time. And I know a lot of people, and I hope that I add value by connecting them with the people or the ideas that they need. And we need a lot more than 50 minutes to talk about how the system is so dysfunctional at the moment. I do think that there is room for a third party. I just don't know what that means at the moment. Right now, there are more people registered as independents than there are registered Republicans or Democrats. So I think that that's a signal. It should be a signal to the political parties. It should be a market signal. Politicians don't always react to market signals as they should. Someone please back up working on the mic.
We don't actually work there, we're just trying to figure it out.
Okay.
This is called private sector initiative.
Yeah, so this is just the one that's late. It sounds louder.
Get closer to you.
Is this better?
Yes.
Okay, I'll just do this. So as I said, more people are registered as independents right now. And where that local home for those people is a big question. For a while, I was working for an organization called Freedom Works, and we were instrumental in getting a lot of really good people elected to Congress, and I think we had a little bit to do with Tim's election. But that wasn't really enough. People get to Washington, and the phrase is Washington has them now. They are subjected to all sorts of different incentives that may or may not be best for the country. It may be best for them as an individual politician. So I think that the need is for more education to change the culture, to get people to understand the qualities that they need in a politician, in an elected official. But we also have to look at making change outside of the political system too. We can look at doing ballot initiatives, working at the local level, not always focusing at the top level. When you look back at history, the Republicans were the third party. They were the Whigs, right? There was problems with that party, and they changed and became the Republican Party, and that was a sign that they reacted to the market signal now. Will the Republicans react to market signals and look at the fact that they're losing people to the independent vote and change? Or will the Democrats look at how they're losing people to the independents and change? And that's kind of what we're here to talk about. So I will turn it over to John now.
Thanks, Gary. 100 years ago, when big business, growing government, corruption were major issues, reformers had a reform agenda, which was adopted in many states, passed some by, and here's what they were talking about and trying to do 100 years ago. The right of initiative and referendum, which 27 of our states currently have. The secret ballot, cut down on voter fraud. Civil service reform. Recall of elected officials, as California did with Governor Gray Davis a few years ago. And lastly, often completely forgotten, none of the above. And we are sitting in a state which 42 years ago adopted a none of the above provision, which is still on their ballot. And none of the above typically gets between 3 and 7% of the vote here, depending on the race. The only problem is it's not binding. Nothing happens if none of the above were to prevail in an election at the bottom. Well, 25 years ago, I wrote a book about congressional reform, and one of the major features of it was binding none of the above. In other words, we really mean it. If none of the above were to win an election, plurality, the two candidates, major party candidates they would run against, would lose, and they would be ineligible to run in a special election that would be held shortly after. The parties would have to nominate new candidates. And I think that has all kinds of advantages, and I'll tell you why I think it would be powerful. When I was on the Wall Street Journal editorial board, I used to have an a relaxed dinner where alcohol was flowing freely, they were uninhibited, even more than they usually are. And the reaction I got was how I would gauge whether or not I would promote the idea to my bosses at the Wall Street Journal. In other words, if they really hated the idea, there must be something good in it. So I brought up the issue of none of the above once. And once they understood the issue, they recoiled in horror, both parties. It was like practically encountering a cross. And one member stood up, half soused, and started yelling at me, saying, "I can't believe anyone would come up with such an un-American, unpatriotic idea. Are you telling me that if I ran for re-election, I could be replaced by an empty chair? None of the above?" And I looked up at him sweetly and said, "Only if the chair was better." And he didn't like that. I think he left the room very quickly. I think none of the above has some real advantage to it. Tony Schwartz is not someone we remember, but he was the one who created the infamous Daisy ad for Lyndon Johnson, the one that attacked Harry Goldwater with a little 7-year-old girl pulling the petals off the flower, and then there was a nuclear explosion, and President Johnson's voice came on saying, "These are the stakes. Are we going to have a free nation, or are we all going to be incinerated?" Well, Tony Schwartz eventually became sort of a left anarchist libertarian in his later years. I got to know him. And Tony gave me all kinds of advice on how to promote none of the above. And this is what I wrote in my book shortly before Tony passed away. This would be the ad that Tony prepared for none of the above. Many Americans don't have health care, jobs, or adequate public schools. Taxes go up, businesses shut down. Who is going to fix this mess? Republicans? Democrats? The White House? Let's choose. Who was not tainted by the savings and loan and other scandals? Clearly, none of the above. Which candidates refuse to be swayed by PAC and special interest money? Clearly, it's none of the above. Which elected officials do not raise taxes, do not break promises, do not put image above issues, or make promises that are impossible to keep? None of the above. The choice then is clear. At the voting booth, select none of the above. A reliable option. Because if the candidates won't change, we've got to change the candidates. Paid for by the none of the above committee. I guarantee you, I have not met a single elected official, president of the company excluded, he's a former, who likes this idea. Not one. I've tried it out on dozens of people. They all hate it. There must be something good to it. Adding none of the above to the ballot may also improve the nation's abysmal voter turnout. None of the above might even discourage highly negative campaigning, since candidates would be running for the approval of voters, not just to offend fewer people than their opponents or to trash their opponents. When confronted with the option of bad versus worse, the evil of two lessers, as I call it, none of the above would allow people to say, "Give me a better choice." Isn't that one of the things that American democracy should be all about? Now, those who say this would never work, I say it did work in a rough form in 2016. 2016 was a very unusual election. Some of you may remember the talk I gave on Hillary Clinton about her spoiled the Freedom Fest in 2015. Was anyone here for that? Well, that was at the time, that was my recitation of none of the above. The thing that was unusual about the 2016 election is this. For the first time in modern polling history, 20% of the American people said they hated, of the voters, not just the people, said they hated both candidates. Not just dislike, not disdain, not have reservations about, hated. That was the none of the above vote. And that vote broke 61% for Donald Trump and 39% for Hillary Clinton. These were people who, because of civic engagement or duty or whatever, or the fact that they had decided they had to make some kind of choice, voted even though they hated both candidates. And I went out after the election because, I got it wrong too. I said Trump only had a 35% chance of winning. I was wrong too, just less wrong than many. And I asked a bunch of people at a focus group who were in this category of hating both candidates. And I said, what was the reason? And they said, well, Hillary Clinton, 30 years of proven corruption, 3 months of accusations of corruption. I'll go with the corruption I don't know. But I don't think we should rely on that kind of seat-of-the-pants logic or wisdom in the future. Even if we can't get this done, and I'm under no illusions that we could, although some state in the initiative process might try it, Nevada passed it by the initiative process, they just at the last minute took out the teeth of it. So we might have some state to try this someday, and if we did, we might be pleased by the results. And I'll tell you this, if we don't get it done, just promoting the idea, I think forces candidates to realize that our vote has to be earned. It's not a guarantee. And even if we just had none of the above on the ballot without a binding provision, I think it would be an improvement over the current situation. Thank you.
Didn't win the primary election here in Nevada.
Yes, unfortunately, it didn't lead to a new election with new candidates. None of the above has won several elections in Nevada, but it doesn't matter. In other words, they just basically continue as if nothing happened.
Definitely no.
Hello, I'm David Nott with the Reason Foundation, and none of the above to us is about not looking to the political process or the political candidates as our answer. So we choose to specialize in ideas because we think ideas are eternal, they have consequences, and that they are relevant for the long haul. So we look at the politicians in some sense as followers, as people who will do what's expedient, what's convenient, will get them short-term advantage. So our challenge is twofold. We need to deliver them good ideas that they can adopt, and we need to change the culture so that they can be like the band leader and run out in front and pretend like they're leading the culture, but really the culture is leading them. So we do that in a couple of ways. Through our journalism, we try to popularize the ideas of liberty, tell good stories, get good communicators like Kennedy, worked at Reason TV, which was launched by Drew Carey, the comedian. We now have John Stossel making videos for Reason TV. So having these spokespeople for our ideas helps us to reach a large audience. We're reaching some 4 million video views each and every month now through Reason TV. So that's one way of trying to change the culture. Second way of trying to change the culture is to reach the young people. And for that, you have to talk to young people about issues that they care about. Free speech on campus, sexual consent, war, drug legalization. These are things that young people care about. And really the established political parties, that they don't really want to talk about the things that the young people care about. And we're happy to. So this allows us to reach a very young audience. Some 40% of the readers of our magazine are under the age of 35. So we are selling these ideas, we think, in a way that will influence the culture for years to come. Now that's on the journalism side. We also think that public policy matters and that the laws that we pass matter. So our founder, Bob Wool, wrote the first book on municipal privatization in 1980. And it's a pretty simple idea that government would do better to hire contractors to cut the grass or make the photocopies instead of hiring government workers to cut the grass and make the photocopies. And that way they have responsive vendors providing the services of the functions of government. Pretty simple idea. But for us, it embeds a lot of sort of libertarian or market-based principles, that you get the incentives right, you get the property rights, you get the knowledge mobilized at a local level, and you get radically better outcomes. I mean, the simple truth about privatization is you get a 30% cost reduction and better quality of government services overnight. It's the best diet that was ever invented. What's hard is the political will, the political courage, and the political leadership. So our job is to package the idea, make it as adoptable as possible, so that the politicians can then employ them, hopefully as off the shelf as possible. And we find that there are courageous politicians who want to lead the way. There are politicians who do math and see that the public sector unfunded pension liability in this country is approaching $4 trillion. I mean, it's a staggering number. And we've worked with Governor Bevin in Kentucky, Governor Ducey in Arizona. We've worked in Michigan and South Carolina to actually bring better math to the accounting of the government books. So this is a way of specializing in policy and not focusing on who the politicians are or what the horse race is going to be, but instead what are better outcomes for all of our citizens. And so whether that's through medical marijuana, legalization of marijuana, public sector pension reform, pricing and transportation, our Bob Poole, in addition to leading the way on privatization, has been the chief protagonist arguing that our air traffic control system should use computer technology instead of vacuum tubes. We should use GPS rather than humans. We should have the incentives aligned where the air traffic control system is managed, as it is in Canada and New Zealand, much more effectively by an air traffic control corporation. And this is an idea that every president for the last 5 has agreed upon. And we got closer this last fall than we have in the last 40 years. But the reality was, the obstacle was rural Republican senators who didn't want to lose their patronage jobs. So this is the heartbreak when you specialize in ideas, is you do sometimes run up against political interests, special interests, patronage jobs. Our approach is, rather than focusing on the politicians, let's sell the ideas. Sometimes we'll make progress, sometimes we'll lose, but on net, we have a conviction that the ideas of liberty, that the ideas of free markets, that the rule of law is a superior system in the short term and in the long term, and that we are on the right side of those ideas, and it is in that we put our confidence rather than none of the above.
This was a lightning round. It was a pretty slow amount of lightning coming my way. My name is Huelskamp, and I approach the Heartland Institute. I am a recovering politician. I spent 20 years in elected office, 14 years where I actually thought I could get something done in the state senate. And I spent 6 years in Washington, D.C. in Congress, knowing I basically could not get anything done. My story, my first weekend back from Washington, D.C., about every weekend after that, I was always asked, is Washington everything you thought it would be? This from my friends and my colleagues, and I said, oh, yes, everything I expected and worse. I have a question here, though, and I can get into all kinds of stories about the dysfunction. But let me get one story about dysfunction. Do you all remember about 10 or 15 years ago when all the mainstream publications and plenty of healthcare experts were telling us how successful the VA system was? They really were. Atlantic had this huge article, this is the future of healthcare. And so I show up in Washington and get assigned to the VA committee by the web. No one wants to be on the VA committee. They all say that, dude. No one wants to be on the VA committee because you can't raise money through the VA committee. You actually have to do your job. Anyway, so what I was told you was having to be assigned there, and I showed up and I looked at the rules that we were adopting. This is the Tea Party class of 2010. We were going to take a change Washington, throwing out Pelosi, bringing in, that's his name, John Baker, and we're going to change. I looked at the rules. The new Republican rules were just the same as the old Republican Democrat rules under Pelosi. I said, wait a minute, I thought we came to change this place. I heard John Boehner say that. I heard Eric Cantor say that. I heard Kevin McCarthy say that. And one of the leaders on the committee looked at me and I said, why are we changing this? Let's make this more open so we can see our votes. And he looked at me and he said, welcome to Washington. And ladies and gentlemen, here's my question. It's a little bit different than each of these. So think in your mind, when do you think our political system was most dysfunctional? Think about that. Do you think it's most dysfunctional today? Raise your hands. That's everybody. Okay, that's interesting, not me. How about maybe 20 years ago? Do you think it was more dysfunctional 20 years ago than it was today? Probably not. I'm not seeing many votes. We can keep moving back. But I want to roll forward to one thing, or actually roll back. And think about this. Here's my suggestion.
Our founders of this country totally expected a federal government to be dysfunctional. Why did I say that? Because they adopted at that time a real novel concept. Let's limit the power of the federal government. For a number of years, we basically had no federal government. That didn't quite work out. But if you look back over the history of this country, it's always been dysfunctional. And what is fascinating about the history of our founders is they themselves were going to participate. Many of those folks that were putting the Constitution together, the Declaration, figured one day they might be the head of this thing. But they also understood that power would be dysfunction. Then it wouldn't work out. So they believe in a concept that's totally opposite. They believe in the concept of freedom. That's why I have a Heartland Institute, because we think the answer to all these problems is basically less government and more personal freedom. It's as simple as that. More markets and less government power. So I would argue that government is dysfunctional. It's going to be dysfunctional. They can't make the right decisions. There's certain things they have to take care of, and I would argue that they can't even take care of them, and that's national defense, and we can probably agree on that. But I would say dysfunction Washington is expected, and the way we deal with it is just make sure they have less control over our lives. And I will tell you for certain that was a very well-accepted concept in the Republican Congress I worked with for 6 years. And one thing I do want to make an observation about 2016, and John made a similar observation, but I really do believe that Donald Trump becoming president was the ultimate figure to the dysfunction in Washington, where America says we've had enough. And maybe it's just 3 months of corruption versus 30 months, maybe the worst candidate Democrats ever had. But I think actually what has happened since then is just turned that place upside down. Every piece of dysfunction that's there, the President of the United States has been pointing down. I was actually one of the things the Heartland Institute has been working on is working with the Global Institute and other things on a fundamental concept. You should be able to try at healthcare a drug that will save your life. It's called RTI. You should be able to do that. I think we don't agree on that. I also think we could expand that to thousands of other drugs that are actually moving forward through the process and could save people's lives and improve that. So I think that Bill's signing the right to try. And one thing there that really struck me, the President said, right to try. By the way, that's a great thing. That's what he said. That's his observation. He says, what took this so long? What took so long? And I went back to the Heartland Institute and talked to a member of interns and said, think about that. How could a town ever decide that it's better off that you die so they can wait 10 years before that new pharmaceutical drug comes through? And most folks in Washington, until right until it barely passed, decided it was better that millions of Americans basically not have a choice between life or death. And that is pure dysfunction. But it purely makes sense in a system in which the government knows best. And I look forward to your questions, but all of them offer that our founders, our system is built upon the understanding that government is really going to mess that up. And I say that part of that we work in all 50 states. We work with hundreds and hundreds of state legislators giving them free market alternatives, because at the end of the day, that's what's going to improve our society. That's going to solve our social and economic problems if we can get government out of the way.
So Senator Terry, maybe you talked about education as being important issues and changing culture. And then Tim, your question, I think it's dysfunctional more than my lifetime today than others. But I met a great time when the discourse is just so heightened and ineffective, and the type of language is used and the way people make fun of the presidents of the United States. I've never been through a time like that before. It seems to me you can't solve a problem unless you can actually have discourse and get the education and get people talking to each other. So I would get past all this lack of civility and get to the educating and the changing culture.
So I'm not sure that the discourse and the dysfunctionality and all the name calling is actually any worse today than it was, say, 200 years ago. But 200 years ago it happened in a tavern and only 10 people heard it. And here the names are called out on Twitter and through social media. So everyone hears it. But I think the discourse is still a few people. I mean, we have people from on either side of the political spectrum just going further and further out and creating that view that it really, really is that messed up and the world is falling apart. And I don't actually believe that. And I that is what we do at Free People, where we try to reach out to both sides of the political spectrum and the people in the center. We talk about those ideas and those values that unite both sides. We've done a lot of work on Right to Try. We talk about medical cannabis and use human value stories when we talk about legalizing medical cannabis. We talk about the cancer survivors and the people that suffer from acute and chronic pain every day get off of opioids by using cannabis. We use human value stories to reach both sides, and we don't get involved in those issues that divide. We think it's more important to talk about the issues that unite everyone. And if we focus on that, then that's how we think we can move the country forward and make things better.
George Will mentioned yesterday that out of 330 million Americans, at any given time, less than 3 million are watching cable television news. And that puts things into perspective. One of the reasons our country is great is because it was made so that the vast majority of people, the vast majority of the time, can forget about politics and get on with the serious business of living, which is your family, your heart, your home, your hobbies, all the things that are meaningful in life, your faith. And forget about politics. Well, unfortunately, it's much more difficult to do that today because the government is actively trying to interfere in our daily lives and make it more difficult. I think what we need is to point out there's a small percentage of people, and they're both major political parties, that are power junkies. All of this is about a 5-letter word, power. Now, sometimes they try to confuse the issue and say it's about money in politics. Well, the reason money in politics is there is because there's power to seize. And I think we have to make this an issue of power versus the people. Do we let people live out their lives in relative freedom, or do we surrender to a bunch of people who are trying to seize the instruments of power in government and bend them to their will? And I think we have to make this not a 50-50 debate between the half of the country that more or less supports Trump and the half of the country that more or less hates Trump. We have to make this as much as possible against the people in both parties who are the power junkies. And we have to make this as much as possible us against them, because they have distorted everything. And everything that you see in the current debate, the dysfunction, the lack of civility, is because we finally have stripped away the mask. It's not about issues, it's not about ideas as much as David tries, and he tries manfully, and God bless Reason and Heartland for trying to do what they do. But at the heart of Washington, it's about power. And I'll give you an example of how situational all this is. I wrote this book on term limits 27 years ago. And I had no support on the left, really. And suddenly, the other day, the day after Brett Kavanaugh was appointed to the Supreme Court, I opened up the New York Times, and there's an editorial endorsing term limits for Supreme Court justices. I literally dropped my Cheerios. This is all about power, and we just have to tell the narrative, not just the positive aspects of freedom, and how people can improve their lives and those of their family if they're left alone. We have to expose these frauds for what they are. These are people who are out to run our lives, sometimes in different ways, using different methods, using different party labels. We just have to tell our story of positive freedom and tell their story of squalor and patronage and lust for power.
Jump in here, or I can pick on you for something else.
Well, I think the civility, the lack of civility we feel now is exactly the same as it's always been. When Obama came in, there was all of the talk about the lack of civility. And in fact, we put a video together of using election rhetoric from Thomas Jefferson versus John Adams. And it's things like, he's a half-breed effeminate. You know, it was all ad hominem attack, even among our founding fathers. So I think it's the same as it's always been.
Well, I was only in Washington for 6 years, but my observation, it was all political theater, and usually very bad political theater. It just wasn't even entertaining, and that was just me. But what we have going on now about the court, I mean, it's all over. And thankfully, we have a president of the White House, looks like he has appointed or offering up a man that will actually choose freedom over control and government power. That's why the left won't be all in. There is no hold bar. Anything will be said, anything will be done, anything to keep them from getting 50 votes. So it may not be a perfect idea on view on that, but the left, anybody but this president has to be stopped, because there's 5 votes to say the government can't do something. That is a fundamental shift back to what the founders intended. And so you'll see everything. But also, when I was up there for 6 years, anytime they said, boy, we're all getting along, I got really, really nervous. I really did, because that always meant that it's a really bad deal. One thing, and speaking about the other people, we really, and actually I can prove that point, John, as well, but we all got along. But no, when they were talking in the early 80s, that was functional. But here's what's happening that Washington is missing and most American people are missing. You think back when Reagan, before Reagan took office, our national debt was less than $1 trillion. At that time, the Democrats were talking about how bad Republicans were running up the national debt. So by 1990, it had exploded to $3 trillion. Then by 2000, it was $6 trillion. But today, it's $21 trillion. And our unfunded liabilities are over $123 trillion. So the dysfunctional stuff, I think when they were emotional is when they added many of these things, when they all decided to get along and put the bill on the future.
You know, as a friendly amendment to what Tim just said, there's an old story about why we should be suspicious of bipartisanship. Because under bipartisanship, there are 2 major parties. And one is the stupid party and one is the evil party. And you can pick and choose which one you want to think is which. And so when you get bipartisanship, they get together and they pass legislation that is both evil and stupid.
Tim, I know you mentioned your goals about less government, liberty, etc. I was always taught when I was learning social studies that there's 3 branches of government, there's supposed to be checks and balances, and if anything, the framers intended the Congress to be the stronger of the 3 branches. Congress has now made itself a weakness of the 3 branches, and another expression is nature affords a vacuum. So now we have the president arguably the strongest branch by far. It's this nature affords a vacuum. We're living in the executive orders, and we're living in a time of types of dysfunction. How do we get some of that balance back in this?
Well, I think there's a chance for the courts, but also don't forget the founders. Where did the first Supreme Court meet? I mean, basically the room closet in the Capitol. Or outside the Capitol, our founders never intended that type of power in the courts. That's the history, because they fear tyranny amongst a limited group of bodies. But the first article of the Constitution deals with Congress. Obviously, they expect Congress to have that power, but I would say they forfeited. Various presidents have stolen that, and the courts have stolen power as well. But I think, again, all the chips are wrong, because we could have 5 justices if the current appointee is confirmed, that would actually err on the side of less government power. But I will tell you, there is good news, though, we also have in Washington, because there is state after state that, by the way, they can't print their own money. Obviously, and so you have Illinois going back up, which we have that part that happens to be there, not making progress, but there are literally dozens of states that actually see they're going to have to do something different. And so we're working state after state where I see there's a good policy being adopted, a good conservative free market policy that reduces the power of government, forces people to go to work if they're on welfare. And you see who's trying to stop it? They're going to the courts. Because that's the only power they have left right now. So there's good news. I don't want to override that, because we see that happening in state after state, which is what our founders intended. That's where these decisions should be made, like in the founders.
Yeah, I think it's been really interesting to see the huge expansion in executive power and executive privilege, and the Supreme Court has been complicit in that. So I am optimistic about Judge Kavanaugh, who has a history of arguing that executive agencies don't get to reinterpret legislation however they want to. But what we've seen is, look at Obamacare, which was passed legislatively, and despite Trump's protests, that has held up to the efforts to undermine it. On the other hand, the changing of what gender is in Title IX, the Waters of the United States ruling, the Clean Power Plan, the signing on to the Paris Accord, all done by unilateral executive action under Obama, are now being undone by unilateral executive action under Trump. What we don't have is the original founding conception that the legislators passed the laws and that the executive implemented them. Instead, we have this really, it's just been corrupted completely, turned on its head with an expansion of power in the executive branch. So, in any way of stopping
David, you couldn't be more right. And, you know, one of the things I suggest everyone in this audience do is go Google Ronald Reagan's farewell address to the nation in 1989. It is one of the most profound documents ever. He only gave one warning in that speech, and it was, I fear we are losing our sense of history and civics. We are not teaching what it is to be an American. The ideas of what makes American exceptionalism a reality. You cannot carry out liberty through the bloodstream. You have to transmit it through education and example through generation to generation. I believe there's been a conscious effort the last 40 or 50 years not to teach history, civics, or governance along the lines of what David and Tim have mentioned, and Terry, in our public schools, and even in some of our private schools. As a result, no millennial I know actually has heard, unless they read it by themselves, has actually heard the American story. The Pew Center came out with a poll this year. Only 33% of Americans can name the three branches of government: legislative, judicial, executive. 26% can't name even one. If you have a country that is deliberately and consciously uneducated, then it becomes all about results. The court, it's all about what result the court reaches, not what the limits on the court are. It's all about the administrative state and allowing the administrative state to basically assume the rights of Congress and the prerogatives of Congress without any discussion of whether or not they have the right to do so. If we don't educate our young people, and thankfully I think Freedom Fest is at least trying to help that way, especially with this emphasis on the bookstore and everything else, we're lost. Because millennials today know far less than we did when we went through public school.
We're about 10 minutes left. We're going to take questions, so would you come up with the mic? Again, the instructions are for speaking in the way.
Hi, my name is Paul Pettis. This is for John specifically, but I'd like to hear from the other members of the panel too, with regard to none of the above. There are other ways of voting, ranked choice, instant runoff. I'm curious, John, would you think those would fit in, you know, with none of the above, or are they antithetical to none of the above? Would you run both of them, or what are your thoughts?
I normally don't like to oversimplify, but I will. If you can't explain something in less than 20 words, it's not going to be widely adopted. If you can explain ranked choice voting in less than 20 words, I'll give you a hearing. I don't think you can. I know you could explain none of the above in 4 words. None
Legislation and question.
My name is Dana. Thank you for the panel. It was really interesting. My question is, I'm sorry, is it Tim? Yes. I just wanted your opinion on where the threshold is where personal liability, personal responsibility stops and government has the opportunity to step in, because I've been thinking about this a lot and I can't really find a really good instance where this occurs. And so I'd like your opinion on that, and in the context of advancing and globalizing society like you see in the EU, more centralization. Thank you.
Well, that was a really long answer. But let me short circuit what the founders thought, which is supposedly still the basis of our country, our Constitution. They identified very certain categories in which the government can operate. Now, the rest supposedly were off limits. And I think when we pull that together, we do have to delineate which of those specific instances at the federal level. And then we also understand there are 50 states where more opportunities than most constitutions state level, much more broadly and much more expansively allow government opportunity. But I can't think of a particular example outside of national defense where the government can do a better job than the people of America. And There's no evidence of that. But that doesn't matter in Washington, D.C. That's usually not the question. It's all about, did we do it that way last year? If so, we're going to do it some more. Then somebody comes forward and says, we're going to do it even more, take away your liberty. So at the end of the day, man, you're the one who looks like about the youngest in here. You're getting stuck with a bill for every bit of this, all this experimentation. And I would encourage you just to really, here's the word, be really upset. Because they've experimented for 200 years of growing power with $123 trillion that your generation after are going to pay off this grand experiment of big government. And the EU's even worse. I think it's too late for them. They've lost their culture of independence if they had one in the recent past. But I think we can still save this country. But it's going to take a lot of folks getting really upset. And I will tell you, there was a lot of upset folks in 2009, 2010. I became chairman of the Tea Party caucus. But Washington just kind of consumed all those people, consumed all those ideas, and ended up changing very little, which really, in my mind, gave us Donald Trump at the election.
I just want to be an optimist for 20 seconds. I spend a lot of time going to left-wing conferences. Like, I'm going to the Daily Coast conference soon. I'm the pinata, they put me on panels and I do it because I want to find out what they're saying and thinking. I know we have problems, but you know, there's always the grass is green on the other side syndrome. You think you're depressed? Think the other reason. They call me at all. I'm calling them, what are the rigs? I have the rig. They're not having cameras. Next question.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth. So you guys talk about dysfunction, how millennials aren't active enough within the government and political system, and this question actually for the speaker. But so what do you suggest of how to implement a new none of the above or third party in order to get us to do that? Because I can tell you, especially from seeing my friends, no one cares because it's so dysfunctional. Millennials don't care to give the time. They just decide, okay, I'm going to go with what my parents think. So what do you guys think, or the speaker and all of you guys, how can you actually be implementing none of the above or another party that can interest us?
Well, there's an alternative which we should take from our history, go local.
Yes.
You know, the biggest difference you can make in the lives of yourself and your neighbors is to be active locally. You can actually do stuff. And a lot of us forget that because we get swept up with Washington drama. You know, 95% of the news coverage is out of Washington. Go local. Sometimes it's a private initiative, sometimes it's a food bank, sometimes it's charity, sometimes it's, locals getting a stoplight down at the local corner because of an accident there. Go local, and you can really make a positive difference where you live.
Very specifically on that, I got a call at work one day, and my wife said the police came over and closed down our kids' lemonade stand. And I can't tell you how angry I was, but a colleague of mine said, David, my brother is a police officer, don't go to war with your local police. So we didn't. We talked to our friends, our neighbors, the teachers, the city council, the city manager, and ultimately they all backed down and said, we want to live in a city where kids can sell lemonade. So it is that kind of outrage that you can direct passionately to a local cause, and it makes a difference.
I see 3 more questions.
By the way, Country Time Lemonade, we need to support them. They have established a legal defense fund for any kid who's busted for selling lemonade. Institute of Justice have been saying for years, the bureaucrats, if we throw enough lawyers at them, they'll stop throwing lawyers at us.
I see 3 more questions. We have 3 minutes. I'm going to have each question, one speaker, and we'll get it done.
It's widely believed that we lost the culture and the public school system. What we did win was the Federalist Society and the courts this time. But John, when you mentioned the idea that they wanted to implement term limits, there was also a plot to go from, instead of 9 in the Supreme Court, up to 16 so they get the same number that we do. How do we get one step ahead of the lawless culture?
You know, there are other panelists here who can probably answer that better than I can. I'll just say this. If the left becomes so deranged and unhinged over the Calvin nomination, they start talking about attacking the court like FDR wanted to do in the 1930s if they get in power, bring it on. Because talk about truly revealing the lust for power, that the rules mean nothing. What is it in the famous poem, The Incredible Bread Machine? The bureaucrat says, in complex times we find the law deficient. We much prefer the rule of men. It's vastly more efficient. That's what they're about. If they try that, bring it on. I'll welcome that debate.
Hi, Bruce Newman Henderson.
We're losing 10. Thank you for your
I just want to make two quick comments. First of all, as far as this being the most dysfunctional time, 240 years ago, the Vice President shot the former Treasury Secretary to death. I think that's a little bit worse than now. 150 years ago, the states fought with one another, and hundreds of thousands died. I think it's a lot worse than it is now. I think we need to get off of social media. We need to calm down. We need to work locally. I'm doing some running as a third-party candidate, as a libertarian in Henderson down here, for the state assembly. And I can't get any traction because people really don't care about. The answer is third parties. Why waste my time? It's going to be a Democrat, it's going to be a Republican. So what we talk about is really great, but people don't really care enough. They're willing to take what they're given by the bigger parties. Thanks.
Well, I meet many people who have been highly influenced by the Libertarian Party. People who saw ads for Ed Clark in 1980 and it changed their lives. People who've read ballot statements. So I would encourage you, keep advocating for the principles you care about, keep knocking on doors, keep communicating about what you care about, because that's, again, how we change the culture.